And instead of preventing partisan weaponization, your department has engaged in a brazenly political prosecution at the president's explicit direction.
That was just part of some of the grilling we saw yesterday when Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Bondi was asked about National Guard deployments, the indictment of James Comey, the Epstein files, and so much more. Joining us now to talk about Bondi's comments, Princeton's Dr. Lauren Wright. Hey, Lauren, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Hey, guys.
Now, as a casual viewer, anybody would think that the Attorney General wasn't giving information as she was prepared to be combative with the Democrats on the committee. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, you know, unfortunately, and it's sad for the American public, this is how all Senate hearings shape up to be these days. Republicans would have watched this and said, man, she held up to that scrutiny and she got some good lines in. And Democrats watching probably thought she got pinned down and she got embarrassed. And so, you know, the sad part for the American public watching this is they don't get the information that hearings are designed to produce. They get partisan showmanship. And that's what the Senate is very good at doing now, is producing sound clips that are used for campaigns and fundraising. And I don't really know where we go from here, but there was plenty to celebrate and decry on both sides of the aisle.
Items that the Attorney General had to address was the investigation that was ultimately dropped into border czar Tom Homan, who reportedly accepted $50,000 bribes in exchange for helping contractors get work with the federal government. Before I ask you about that, Professor, I want to listen to Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse talking about this issue. Do we have that sound, guys? Sorry. You saw this hearing. He basically asked, what happened to this $50,000? Is there any audio or video evidence that Mr. Homan ultimately accepted this bribe? What did you make of her comments in response to him basically saying, look, if you got questions, take it up with Kash Patel over at the FBI?
Right. I mean, that's probably as good as you could do in her position. But look, these are very fair questions that over history have been asked to Republicans and Democratic appointees alike, and they're basic questions about ethics and character and commitment to the law and commitment to the job. But in this partisan polarization age, a lot of people are willing to look past those questions if they think the appointee is delivering on the border or delivering on illegal immigration. And a lot of conservatives and Republicans believe Homan falls into that category. But absolutely, these are straightforward questions that would be asked to anyone if Homan was appointed by a Democrat.
Going back to the combativeness, which clearly existed on each side, that also erupted during the conversation on the Epstein files. Can you talk about that?
Well, the problem for Trump and Bondi on this issue is, of course, the famous soundbite that Bondi gave, I have the client list on my desk. And so then she had to backpedal and say she didn't really have it. There was a misunderstanding. They've released everything they can. They've been extraordinarily transparent. And the push-pull comes because a lot of those demands for full transparency in the Epstein saga come from MAGA Republicans. And that's why it's such a tough issue. And Democrats, understandably, are driving it home because, you know, whether or not it affects the day-to-day lives of Americans is a different question. But there is a lot of interest in Epstein. And there's a lot of interest in figuring out who knew what when and who was responsible for the suffering of these young women.
I want to talk about elections here in the D.C. area. We've got a big election coming up in Virginia next month, as I'm sure you're very much aware. There's been a little bit of controversy with the Democratic nominee for Attorney General. Some leaked text messages from 2022 talking about violence against his political opponents and their kids. Let's play some sound, guys, if we have it, from the opponent, the Republican in this race, Jason Miyares. Do we have that sound? We don't. I'm struggling this morning. Professor, what do you make of this? Jay Jones has said he's sorry. He wants to learn from this. He's accepted it and is sort of saying it's time to move on. Is that going to be enough, especially in a day and age and a time, politically speaking, where political violence is at the forefront of the national conversation?
I don't know, because you're right. Political violence is an especially salient issue right now, and a lot of Americans are afraid of it. Looking at the larger context of this, Corey and Hillary, I would just say that I love the way you set up the show, and this is what we do really well at The Hill and at News Nation and Nexstar, is you can clearly see Republican candidates have these disturbing elements of their history, and Democratic candidates have these disturbing elements of their history. No one side owns bad behavior. Neither is inherently evil and inherently bad. There are corrupt politicians and badly behaved politicians on both sides. And so, considering the moment that you aptly asked about, I don't know if that apology would be enough. Republicans are going to be all over it. But the play that Jay Jones is likely to continue is that, I made a mistake and I'm trying to be canceled now and I will reform myself instead. And the voters will ultimately decide unless he drops out.
Yeah, that's a tough one to come back from.
Yeah.
Dr. Lauren Wright, thank you
really
so
tough.
much. We really appreciate you being with us.